Here in the West Country. Indeed, they had their first success here. All that seems to have changed. Now they've a new leader, as the Brexit talks are stuck and a clean break in 18 months is looking unlikely. Here's Paul Baltrop.
The moment of reckoning in Torquay. The faces said it all. Picking the wrong leader would have meant many quitting the party. But the controversial anti-Islam candidate came second to the ex-army officer, to the relief of many.
Well, I must admit I have been quite worried about what this result would be and what it would mean for the party. A lot of us were quite worried about the situation. Obviously, there's a lot of people here today that voted for a candidate that didn't win. But for us that were really worried about it being hijacked by that candidate, it's a huge relief, I have to say.
It has been difficult for quite a while, actually, and I think with all the change of leadership as well, people were beginning to lose faith in the party as where we were going to go forward.
As well as the new leader, UKIP have got a new logo. The lion proved a runaway winner with delegates here at the conference as UKIP undergoes a major rebranding. Everyone here hopes it'll prove a turning point for the party after what's been a pretty grim 12 months. In May's local elections, UKIP lost every West Country seat they'd seized 4 years previously. Worse was to come in June with a collapse in their vote at the general election. The party are trying to work out what went wrong.
The general election this year was tough because people thought we had a job done, and also the problem was we just got demolished in the locals, which meant that people thought, well, there's no UKIP anymore. And of course the message we were saying is maybe UKIP isn't as strong as before, but even if we don't win, a vote for UKIP shows something.
Pretty depressing, to be honest with you. What made it worse was when we were out and we were speaking to the people, knocking the doors, we were out on the street stalls, we met people. I wasn't sure whether we'd get a win or not, but to actually get the low results that we got actually in the box, yes, it was a bit depressing.
At conference, there was much talk of making sure Brexit actually happens and much yearning for a return to the glory days under Nigel Farage.
We've had a very difficult act to follow. Nigel was a supreme leader, and I don't mean that in the North Korean sense. I mean that in the sense that he was so difficult to follow because everybody in UKIP was his supporter, and he carried the party with him universally.
And we want to be a nation that is proud to be called...
UKIP went into this conference with trepidation. They must now put their faith in a relative political novice, their fourth leader in little more than a year.
I'm happy to say we're joined by Ben Walker, a former UKIP councillor who at one stage was in the running to become UKIP leader himself. Thanks for coming in. Are you feeling all pumped up and enthusiastic now?
No. No, not really. I mean, it's been a very, very difficult period for UKIP as a party. I think the election, the leadership election of which I was involved in to begin with was... that was fairly treacherous in itself. A little bit of sort of, trench warfare going on there. But we've got a guy who we don't know. It was a shock result. He wasn't tipped to sort of become the leader. So he's an unknown quantity. And I think a lot of people think they want to give him a bit of time and see what happens, as do I. The only thing I would say about it is that I'm pleased that the right side of the argument won. So in terms of the libertarian side of the party winning through.
You're sounding like you're doomed.
No, I think we've got work to do. I think you have to be honest about that. We've got a huge amount of work to do to make sure, and you talked earlier about messages, that's kind of what we lack.
It would be ironic, wouldn't it, having won Brexit for the country, now things are not going terribly well with the negotiations, that UKIP actually disappears from the scene.
Well, absolutely right, and you can see by the things that are currently going on. I mean, look at Boris Johnson now. He's saying the sort of things that UKIP should be saying, but we've handed it over to the Conservative Party.
So we don't need you anymore.
Well, that's the. I think yes, you do need us, but the trouble is the strategy, the thinking, the leadership of the party to date has allowed this to happen.
Neil Carmichael.
Well, I think that UKIP's done enough damage already, but what we need to do as a Conservative Party is demonstrate what is going to happen to this country in the medium term. I think that's all about making sure we get the best possible deal.
Are we going to actually have Brexit?
Well, yes. The question is what kind of Brexit and what does a transitional agreement actually
Are we going to get a deal?
To? I don't think we'll get a deal in the sense of there'll be some sort of immediate trade arrangement or anything like that. I think that's going to actually take a lot longer to work out. I think there are some real big challenges over sort of disengagement, which are already proving to be difficult.
OK, Kerry?
I think it's good that she's agreed to the 2-year transition period now, which is something Labour was pushing for, because there was just absolutely no way that we would have got any sort of substantial progress made in time for us actually leaving the EU in 18 months' time, which was why I was against triggering Article 50 so quickly. But
Mr Corbyn wanted to trigger it immediately, didn't he?
Well, I think that was an error. I think he may say that he misspoke on that, but I think he was just signalling that the people had voted no in the referendum, and we ought to accept that result. But I just, every day you find out something more that will complicate the Brexit process, and things that the government clearly hasn't got to grips with yet, doesn't even understand the problem, let alone trying to find a solution. So it's incredibly complicated.
Let's bring back Ben, as he's only here for part of the show. Ben, is a right old mess, isn't it?
Which bit?
Well, Brexit in general.
No, Brexit.
Look what you've done.
It's not us. The people that voted for Brexit, they knew exactly what they were voting for. And it's that uncertainty that you talked about there, that lies within the Conservative Party. That's why UKIP needs to be a thing.
Did
UKIP
people really know what they were voting for on both sides? Who would have predicted this?
The one thing I would say about the whole campaign itself is it was poor. Both sides of the argument in the campaigns in which they led were poor, and the information being given to people just wasn't good enough. But I do believe in my heart that the people did voted out for the right reasons.
OK, and they did in the West Country, certainly.
Yeah.
They were in a majority. Right, just time for a final quick chat. The newspapers are so busy today. A couple of them have got leaks about the Heath report, that investigation by Wiltshire Police into the former Prime Minister. I spoke to Mrs May about it. Neil, it does seem, according to the Mail on Sunday, that there is some evidence.
I don't think there is at all. I think that this is a fishing expedition. I think that Superintendent Memory was, when he stood outside Arundel's and asked for people to come forward and so on, that was a wrong approach, and I don't think anything has been corroborated, and I think spending £1.7 million on this is wrong. I knew Ted Heath, and I always came across security guards and all of the rest when we were dealing with them.
They say they do have enough evidence, according to this report, to have interviewed him under caution.
Well, that may be so, but that is not proof of guilt by any means, and I just don't think that this matter is being dealt with properly, and I feel that there's a need for a judge to get involved.
Kerry, what do you think?
Well, I think we need to let the police do their job, and if it does go through a legal process, we need to let that take its course. I'm always very wary of prejudging these issues. What is important, though, is that as much attention is devoted to investigating current cases, as there is, huge amounts of money on historical cases. It's important that those victims do feel that they've had their day in court, but there's a lot of issues still to tackle.
We have to leave it. That's all from us this week. My thanks to my guests, Neil Carmichael, Kerry McCarthy and Ben Walker. Don't forget, you can follow us.